Well, I always like to sort of start these kinds of things by just reminding everybody, and then I'll remind everybody at the end, just like how things are connected and that we all live on this one planet with each other, and that ultimately actions in one part of it will impact the whole globe, although obviously the impacts are small from each of those individual parts. So I'm going to start by just zooming into our local region and sort of talking through what this area is. So essentially here we have campus that's sort of nestled between the Quabbin Reservoir and the Connecticut River. And there's a high point between those two that allows water to flow from one side down towards the Connecticut River, and then from the other side towards, actually towards Boston. And it's a little more complicated than that, but that's enough for today. We're going to focus on the campus pond, which is actually a part of this whole thing, but it's obviously a relatively isolated and small part of it, but is part of a watershed that brings water from just upland from campus, enters the Mill River, and then into the Connecticut River. So I'm going to start with just discussing these couple of areas. So there's these headwaters that you can see that are sort of between these apartments, which I can't think of the name, village apartments, and the water towers. And I'm going to focus specifically on this pond outlet location because it really gives you a sense of what happens to the campus pond watershed, which is the Tan Brook watershed. So this is a video sound on here just so you can hear a little bit how it transitions from this sort of natural land to where did the river go. And it's definitely a quote unquote problem that we have widespread sort of impounding water. And then of course the only way it can get out is by either soaking through the water or going through this pipe, which is a culvert. And sorry, this is a little bit jittery. It's just me walking around after a couple of coffees in the morning. So the other thing is that many times you'll see these grates, and often they're sewer lines, but often they're just groundwater. They're collecting groundwater and helping to shunt it along in these watersheds. And so this just vanishes. The school is on the opposite side, and there's a cemetery just up from it. This is actually looking right down into that long headwater pond marsh area, which is, conveniently sort of up higher like those water towers are. The water towers feed water to the entire campus by allowing the water to basically, through gravity, go through all the buildings that it's needed. Much the same way that a headwater will feed, or a pond or something at elevation will feed all the water moving down below. So moving from this pond outlet, we just want to zip, it goes right through downtown Amherst, not that you would ever notice that, and enters campus right at this spot, which I have a little bit more video to sort of give you a flavor of where it is. And I think the first bit here has the audio on just so you can hear water, because otherwise it's just me talking. So I'll probably say less now and just let you watch the water running. It's pretty typical to have a watershed which is controlling the water and putting it into pipes and making it sort of go where we want. So this is the pipe this is actually where the Tan Brook goes into campus, is into this pipe. Obviously not ideal. They'd actually been digging around there to make it work. So the water is right where you're looking, comes in, goes underneath this parking lot, underneath the visitor center, and off towards the Fine Arts Center. And it's conspicuously absent except where it enters, which is right there. You can sort of see the water entering, going through Amherst there, and then it goes underneath the parking lot, underneath the Haggis Mall, into the campus pond, through the rest of campus. And you don't see it as it moves around the rest of campus, but eventually exits down here by the energy plant. So just going back to my Google, here's to campus pond. Before I talk about the exit, just show you Campus Pond. A couple things. There's this Isle of View, which I'm sure you will cross in your time at UMass Amherst, but also, it's just a central part of the campus. And the history of this was that it was actually constructed for ice, for ice cream and for keeping dairy products cold. Much the same way as we've done in other locations. So I have some video here. This is again a little bit shaky, just showing where the water enters. I actually don't exactly know where it enters, somewhere underneath this concrete. Obviously, the water is pretty impounded and stagnant, and it exits at a drainage a point that you can see later on. But just because a place is impounded and the water's dirty doesn't mean that things don't live. So I thought we'd just drop in and see the plastic and stuff that people have thrown into the water, was blown in there. And just, how long do you think it's going to take before we see a fish? And I left the video on just because, I don't know, there's something about underwater noises. Oh, there they are. So these are pumpkin seeds and bluegills. They're sunfish, which are really common, and they're fed here. So they're pretty excited about the fact that there's something in the water. And in fact, they actually start, you can hear they actually start feeding off of the camera itself. And yeah, and eventually they knock it over. And that knocking it over scares everybody, of course. So yeah, I mean, just because an area is dirty doesn't mean there aren't things that won't live there. I would say that the problem is that the things that are living there are not exactly what you would say are the best species for showing high water quality or high habitat. Instead, they're really just one of only a handful of fish that can survive in those waters. So leaving Campus Pond, now I'll just show you the exit of the Campus Pond and Tan Brook watershed as it leaves campus. And it's still channelized in this concrete. And honestly, I don't think anybody would ever notice that there was a stream here. The biggest thing that you can notice is that there's a lot of trees around this creek as it leaves the campus. I have not mustered the guts to go down there and actually sample. But here is just sort of a look around this. There's the bottom of the parking lots right next to the cogeneration plant, which is right there, which burns petroleum, but is because it combines both heating and electricity generation, is fairly efficient.